Bad Brad Berkwitt Show is all about moving humanity forward and fighting for democracy. And remember, folks, every act of kindness is a little love we leave behind. Hey, folks, the man with the pinky ring and the New York thing. Forget about it. Bad Brad Berkwitt. And welcome to the Bad Brad Berkwitt Show on the Ringside Report web TV channel. Forget about it. My returning guest today is a multi-talented singer, songwriter, and actress who is a Grammy-winning musical artist as well as an Oscar-nominated. She had major hits with Midnight Blue, Don't Cry Out Loud, Through the Eyes of Love, You Should Hear How She Talks About You, just to name a few. She's a dear friend of mine, and recently when Debbie and I went to California for our 10th anniversary together, she so graciously hosted us and took us to a fabulous Italian restaurant in Berkwitt, California. That was an old Rat Pack haunt, and she knows, and you know, my viewers, that I love the Rat Pack, especially Frank Sinatra. The food was to die for, conversation was amazing, and what you see with my dear friend MM, as I call her, is one word: mensch. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to my show once again, the one and only, the legendary Melissa Manchester. All right, first of all, darling, good afternoon to you. We're on the same time. I was looking up Des Moines, Iowa. I was like, there's got to be a time difference. There's not.
Yes.
We're both at 12 o'clock.
Yes, yes. It's beautiful here. Yeah.
Great. Well, I want to cover some ground with you today, a little bit different than our usual show that we do. I'm going to read some things, and then I want to give my viewers context on things that I feel are important, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. What I want to start out with this morning, or afternoon, I should say, is Review, which is your 25th album. Congratulations. And I always will say album. I don't say CD or playlist. That's just not my thing. Sorry. Yeah. I'm showing all of my 55 years. You did a duet with the incomparable Dolly Parton on one of my favorite songs of all time, Midnight Blue. Now, for my younger viewers, I want to give some context on this. Midnight Blue, written by you and Carol Bayer Sager, debuted at number 90 on the Hot 100 in the Billboard magazine, dated 10 May 1975. The same issue of Billboard showed the track ranked at number 22 on the magazine's easy listening charts. And folks, I'm reading stuff, you're probably saying, what is all of that? Well, that was a big deal back in the day, and that's why I'm reading this. Where Midnight Blue was in its 4th week on the easy listening top 50. In its 6th week on the Billboard Hot 100, Midnight Blue entered the top 40 at the number 40 on the chart, dated 14 June 1975, with the track ranked number 2 on that week's Billboard Easy Listening chart. Midnight Blue would spend the weeks of 21 to 28 June at number 1 on the Billboard Easy Listening chart, eventually being cited as the number 1, you hear me, folks, the number 1 easy listening hit of the year in 1975 when I was 7 years old. And I remember that song on AM radio on my dad's 1971 yellow Volkswagen Bug, because that's all we had was AM radio. While on the Hot 100 track, it would ascend to the peak of number 6, 8 August 75. I read all of that, folks, because again, those things meant something. The industry is so different now. You had Casey Kasem that did the, the top 40 and all of these things back in the day. We really don't have them anymore. So
and also easy listening was a new idea then.
Exactly. And as I mentioned, Melissa, you redid it for a review with Dolly Parton, which I not only love you two together, love the video, but I love your videos anyways. And I love the vocal that you did, duet that you laid down. So what I would like to ask you is this, off of all of that. What did you feel you brought to the new re-recording the track some almost 47 years after you first had it, such a big hit with it? And what was it like singing with Dolly and shooting the video?
Well, okay, lots of questions. I shall answer one at a time. I had reached out to Dolly to sing on some track on Review, my 25th album, celebrating my 50th year of my career. And I had actually sent her Whenever I Call You Friend, because I thought that song between two women would be thrilling. And she loved the track. I'd sung all of the vocal parts so she could hear it. She said, I love this, but it's too hard for me to learn the harmonies. And she said, write me something else. write me another idea because I want to be part of this. So I thought, what else could be a duet that wasn't designed as a duet? And then I thought, Midnight Blue as a duet between two women would open up the inner world of the song. And so I sent her again the track, all of the parts, so she could know where she sang. She sent me back her track, and it was so gorgeous that I went back into the studio and re-recorded my part to match her emotional part. And it was just thrilling. Then when we all flew down to Nashville to do the video, the last shot of the video, I mean, she's a true queen. Her philanthropy is so astounding. Her commitment to goodness and humanity and literacy and all that. So the last shot of the video, we were in an old Mustang. My videographer was in the front seat. Dolly and I were in the back seat. He was facing us with the camera. We drove around, and back into the parking lot. Well, while we were driving, there was a tour bus.
I saw it, yeah.
That saw Dolly, and the people were dripping out of the side of the bus, screaming her name, and people would pull over to the side and jump out of their cars, Dolly. I mean, it was so dear. And she's a regular gal. She's a hard-working, committed woman. I asked her, I said, would you ever consider retiring? And she said, I've been working since I'm 10 years old. She said, I have musician friends that have retired. She said, and it never works out well. So no, I will not be retiring. It's just great.
Okay. And I got to point out too, just a commentary on what's going on in our country, but our world, is when she knocked on the door, or she came to your dressing room door or wherever that was, it had a thing about masks. A sign about masks, and obviously that's related to COVID, which people forget that COVID still exists today. They act like it doesn't. Okay. Right. All right. I want to talk about a little chestnut that I found, and in my research for our show today, and I call it a childhood chestnut, that I actually had on 45 and had totally forgotten a snippet of Midnight Blue was used in it. The novelty song was Mr. Jaws by Dickie Goodman, that I honestly loved as a 7-year-old. Now, Dickie actually achieved a Recording Industry Association of America, RIAA, gold disc in September 1975 for Mr. Jaws. It was a novelty song. I got to ask you about that. I don't know if anybody's ever asked you before about Mr. Jaws, or it's been a long time. Tell me about that. How did they pick Midnight Blue?
I can't even tell you. I mean, it was a long time ago. I vaguely recall. People just do that. They'll lift a vamp or a piece of a song. And in those days, again, video was new. And so the concept of editing and creating a mashup, the word mashup didn't even exist then. They would just use something as a sort of interstitial idea to go from one idea to the next. And there it was.
Okay. I'll read something we'll talk about on the other side. I want to get into the Funny Girl stuff. You're currently touring with the play Funny Girl, where you play Fanny Brice's mother, Rose. I want to give just a little bit of context for the younger viewers, because I love the movie. I can't wait to see you somewhere close to us.
Yes.
Can't wait. Debbie and I really want to come and see you.
Yeah.
Fanny Brice was her third child. Rose was a Jewish Hungarian woman who immigrated to the U.S. at the age of 10 in 1877 and lived in Manhattan when Fanny was born in 1891. Before I ask you some questions about the play, I want to read a few fan reviews of your performance. And here's a couple. Melissa Manchester was at one moment hysterical, loving, charming, vulnerable, and oi. Such a yenta as Rose Brice. A fabulous performance. When I heard yenta, the 50% European Jew, my dad sounded like, oh, okay, I can relate to that. Another fan said, and if I pronounce her name wrong, please correct me, Melissa. Is it Katrine? Not Katrine. How do you pronounce her first name?
Katerina.
Katerina McCremen. Is that how you say it?
McCremen, yes.
Okay. Performs a brilliant, spicy interpretation of Fanny Brice in Funny Girl, and her vocals are amazing. Along with Melissa Manchester as Mrs. Brice, the tandem work well together, and the music is outstanding. This is a great cast and crew, and well worth coming to see. One more I want to read is a review theater critic Marion Heinrights, I think that's how you say his name, said Melissa Manchester as Mrs. Bryce is utterly convincing as Fanny's mom. So first of all, bravo. I had no doubt that she would be fantastic in this. That's why I really want to see it. First question off that I want to ask you is, being born in New York City and growing up there, how much of that did you bring to the role as Rose, and what I would assume you knew women like her growing up?
Well, Rose Bryce is the embodiment of all of the women that helped raise me, all of my aunties. When I was memorizing this script, um, the words would not come out of my mouth until I found the voice of Rose Bryce, who sounded like all of the women my mother played mahjong with. And still, I cannot say the words unless I'm in that voice, because it's written with such a lilt and such a tonality. Um, so it's so fantastic in this moment to be playing Rose Bryce. I don't know if you know this, but in the early 80s, Julie Stein, the composer of Funny Girl, reached out to me to play Fanny,
Oh,
to recreate the role on Broadway. And I thought I was just starting to have kids. Streisand's shadow and light was still huge around Funny Girl. I had actually seen Funny Girl as a young girl in 1964 with Barbara and Kay Medford playing Rose, a good Catholic woman, by the way.
yes.
And yeah, and so I said to Julie, I said, "Thank you so much. This is amazing, but I just can't." And I was on the road a lot. So fast forward to be playing Rose Bryce in this moment is such perfection. I am bringing everything that I have learned in life, everything that I know to be true about motherhood, the fierce motherly love of a child, that child who's unique among your three, who has a different kind of light, and how to love that child singularly. Um, she ran her own saloon because her gambler husband left her with the three kids, just like Nick Arnstein with Fanny. And what that meant, in because the play takes place between, I think, around 1908 to about 1928, what she must have gone through as a woman owning a saloon in New York. I mean, it must have made her fierce and internally strong while still showing some feminine softness and yet steadfastness to deal with all of the beer purveyors and the whiskey purveyors that came her way, and how to raise strong and steady but loved children. I mean, it's just everything. It's just everything. So and it's such a beautiful show. And what's amazing is two things: that the audiences, first of all, this is historic because this has never been on tour in 60 years. So that's thrilling to be a part of. It's a very big musical. There are no bells and whistles. It's just 30 gloriously talented dancers and singers and actors on stage, and a pit full of musicians, and a score that you know instantly because People is from it, and Don't Rain on My Parade is from it, all these classic songs. And above all, it is the most interesting way to celebrate my 50th year of my career. I auditioned for this part. It was not given to me. I auditioned, I prepared for it, and it's amazing how the audience is responding to it. People just scream and cheer because it's life, it's spirit affirming, it's triumphant, and it's the story of the triumph of the will and the spirit.
And it's interesting, when I was researching this show to put together for today, I didn't realize that Fanny died so young too. She was
She
she
did,
was in her
yeah,
50s. She died
yeah.
very, very young. But
Mhm.
the still pictures and the little clips, because there is, if you go to the site, which I'm going to give her in
Yeah,
a
yeah.
minute,
Mhm.
there's now a video where you, knowing you personally, I could tell. Not only, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've done stage work. It's not easy to do. It's a lot of lines, and you don't get to do a double take if you sudden
Mhm.
flubbs
Right.
up. You got to
Yeah.
just keep rolling with the flow. but I could see in your face and your body language like how much of a good time you're having with this, and I'm absolutely have no doubt that it translates with the fans watching and the whole cast. I mean, the cast is just
Yes, they're
amazing. They're
astounding.
really
They're
amazing.
they're, they're amazing. And it's an acting role. I do very little singing in it. And so to exercise those muscles and to hear the music in how the dialogue was written is really fascinating because that's just the way my brain works.
Okay. For the viewers, you can find tour dates at funnygirlonbroadway.com, and you're currently performing at the Civic Center in Des Moines, Iowa through
Yeah.
March 17th, I think is the date.
Hmm.
And then you
Yep.
go to Vegas.
Yep.
Okay. Which I saw YouTube. She just did a nice little interview with a gentleman out of Vegas where you're going. So as we say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So stay over there and go see it. And what's the, I want to give them the place in Vegas too, because you're going to be there shortly.
The Smith Center. It's
Okay.
a gorgeous theater, and I often perform in the smaller cabaret room called Melvin's. It's off the Strip. It's called Symphony Park. That's the area, and the Smith Center is a proper theater, and it's just beautiful.
Okay. And I got a kick. And if you ever talk to that gentleman again in an interview, I got a kick out of him because he brought up, I love nostalgia. And I love how he said back in the day, because Dad and I drove from Miami Beach to California and we went through Vegas and stayed overnight at Circus. How your
Yeah.
name used to be on the marquee. It wasn't
Oh
all
yeah.
digital. It was your name was on the
Yes.
marquee.
Yes, block letters that were put
Yep.
up by
Yep.
workers. And
Yep.
I mean, the when I first started working there in the sort of mid 80s, I was sort of the first pop performer of my generation to be working in Vegas because Vegas was sort of off to the side. And I played at the Riviera, which was still privately owned by Michelle and Rickless, which is wild. That doesn't exist anymore.
No. Want to ask you a fun but tough question.
Okay.
I'm sure. One night, I want to give you the vision first and then ask you the question. One night, Melissa Manchester presents. You have total control, creative control over this musical concert. What's the venue? Who is opening for you? Who is the arranger conductor? Oh, I know this is a tough one, but I got to ask you this one. And who would songbook? Who are you picking? Think about it for a second.
Only you, Brad.
I know.
Only you would think of this question. All right, give me the rundown again.
Okay.
Venue.
All right, I'm going to run it down. One night creative control. It's called Melissa Manchester Presents. You're not doing your music in this one. You're picking who else. So first, I want to know what's the venue? Where are you going to play? Got to ask you this one because usually if you're doing a show like that, you're having somebody open for you. So the venue and who's opening for you, 1 and 2. What's the answers to those first?
Okay, the venue would probably be the Winter Garden Theater in New York City.
Okay.
Famous, famous, famous theater.
Mm-hmm.
Opening for me, opening for me would be Sinatra.
Okay. Okay. Who was the arranger conductor for the evening?
George Gershwin.
Okay. And if you had to, I think I know the answer to this one now, but if you had to pick the songbook of any writer or team from the 1920s to the 50s, just that era, who are you picking?
I think I would pick Cole Porter.
Cole Porter. Okay.
I think I would pick Cole Porter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one more off of that. What song are you opening with?
No, I get a kick out of you.
Can't ask for better than that. Okay. All right. Want to read something we'll talk about on the other side. I'd like to talk a little bit about your activism side, which you know I adore. You use your platform in various ways to advocate for the LGBTQ community, African American rights, women's rights, and others. One way you do it is through your musical videos, which I have told you before, I am always moved by them. I always see the symbols and what you do, bringing interracial couples together, the LGBTQ. I see it all. I'm very detailed, and I'm very touched by that. I want to talk to your activism side, if you would. For the viewers, how far back does it go? Talk a little bit about the activism side of Melissa Manchester.
Well, I've been singing for AIDS benefits since 1984. I sang at the first major AIDS benefit called Commitment to Life in 1984. on the stage of the Metropolitan Opera House, where my father used to work in the orchestra as a bassoonist. I have marched for women's rights. I took my kids and their dad to the Million Mom March. You may remember that
Hmm.
when Congress was trying to designate ketchup as a vegetable.
Yes, I do.
I thought that can't be right. Um, I sang on the floor of Madison Square Garden at one of the Democratic conventions when all of the newly elected women senators came into Congress, into the Senate. That was a thrill. Uh, I, and I voted, and I've done what I could do. I have sung for President Clinton, um, and here we are in these peculiar times, and thank you once again. I said this to you privately, but coining the term "hatriots," stunning, stunning. You know, one of the things I watched your interview the other night. I forget the young man's name. Jimmy Kennedy, is that his
Yes.
name?
Yep. That's the name.
I was very moved by his concern and, of course, your articulation of where you are. I think one of the things that's, people know something's wrong. People know something's broken. Rationale is out the window. Reality is sort of to the side or made a joke of, the Constitution, who needs that, all that stuff. But it's the articulation. I think what's missing in most discussions, and this is sort of a Lincoln-esque moment, I believe, when Lincoln was going through the Civil War, at one point he said, and it's in the movie Lincoln, that masterpiece, he said, I need you to look beyond these times. I need you to look to the generations to come and what will happen if we don't get rid of slavery. We need to get rid of slavery because of those to come. And I think in that same way, we need to articulate what fascism will look like on these awful shores, what it will actually day to day look like if you can't travel from state to state without permission from the government for women. We're free press, goodbye. you know, and to vote for your guy, he's not your guy, he's his guy. He's his guy. And if he suddenly doesn't like the color of your eyes, bye-bye.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, piece by piece. And for all of us who say that can't happen here, it's happening.
Yes, it
And
is.
that's what this election really is about to me.
No, to me, you preaching to the choir. And I'll say
Mm.
this, I've said it on my show. I'm not asking you to condone what I say or agree what I say. He is, Donald Trump, since we're going there, is America's Adolf Hitler. I'm on the pecking list, but I'm further down. But you just said the media. He doesn't like it. I could see him marching us into an oven or whatever means he wants, public hangings, whatever. And if people don't think that's real and it can happen here, you got the MAGA. It's not even called Republican Party. It's called the MAGA Party for me.
Right.
They stand by silently and they say they're patriots. As I say always, they're hatriots. They're Christians. They're anything but Christians.
They're not.
They say they worship Jesus Christ, but if Jesus Christ were to come back to earth today and they say Jesus or Trump, Jesus is going 0 for 2. He's going to be crucified. And it's the truth. It's the honest truth. I know it's a punchline, but it's not. So no, I agree with you. This, and I tell people, forget the MAGA, they're done. But the independents or the people that say, well, I'm going to sit this one out, they're both equal. No, they're not. Yeah. President Biden may not check every box for you, and that's fine. No candidate will. But it's democracy or autocracy. And there's no, that's it. There's no choices. I mean, there's choice. And the ones that believe, like you said earlier.
There's a choice until there won't be any more choices. When
Right.
You won't be allowed to make a choice.
Yes, yes. But like you just said, But these people, the 35% are ride or die Thelma and Louise off the cliff with this guy. They don't realize when they start talking out the side of this mouth and something, well, I don't like what he did or said. That doesn't work. That doesn't work because you got Fidel Castro, or you got Orban, or you got Mussolini, or you got Hitler or Stalin.
Or
But
Putin.
once you got him, you're stuck with him. So, okay, I absolutely agree with you. Final question I want to ask you today. What is your message or hope for humanity? Because this show is all about humanity, moving it forward.
My hope for humanity. I hope we become a green economy from sea to shining sea. I hope that makes us the shining city on the hill. I hope that music is restored into public schools because the arts, because the arts helps children navigate their feelings, and that's as much a part of basic education as reading, writing, and arithmetic. I hope that mental illness is more and more widely discussed and embraced in terms of knowing that people break down and then can heal, and break down and then can heal. And that we understand at long last, because this is never discussed, that grief is a real part of human development. And until you process grief, you can't really move forward. You put it away, it calcifies into rage or whatever and lashing out, and you pick up a gun and shoot 15 students. Grief is really real in terms of mental health and needs to be addressed from little kids on. I hope that politicians want to be restored to the importance of governance and not just power. That we're a democratic society, and that means something. That Abraham Lincoln was one of the first Republicans on the American scene, and it had a very specific mission at the time. And what was blue and what was red, it has morphed over the years. Okay. But you do want a democratic, because the thing is, you see it over and over in history. These authoritarian societies, at some point, there's this pocket of young people who say, what are we doing here? We want to be free. People always want to be free. It's something that at one point they remember that it was something they had forgotten, or they remember that it was something squelched out of them. And that's among, I want everybody to be fed. I want affordable housing to show up and be restored. In the 50s, we could all live on one paycheck. I would like that to happen again. I would like the pro-lifers to tell the truth and call themselves pro-birthers. Because if they were really pro-lifers, they would strive to pass food enough for Head Start, better education, affordable housing. That's my feeling. That's what I would like.
Okay. You mentioned something I wrote a note here just now. Obviously, you're in the arts. I was in the military. It breaks my heart to see veterans. We mentioned Trump doesn't care about anybody but Trump. I mean, that's fact. He proves it every single day of his life. He doesn't care about his family. He doesn't care about anybody. He cares about himself. And it's sad that he's done nothing for your community. He's done nothing for mine, though there's veterans that say, yes, he has. No, he hasn't. Okay, no, he hasn't. He called it suckers and losers. He minimized traumatic head injuries and said they were headaches. He called John McCain, who was beloved, wasn't a war hero because he was captured. Then they say, oh, no, he's not a war hero anymore because Trump said so. I'm not going to call out specific names, but you have people in your industry, and I'm like, there was no Kennedy Center honors in his 4 years, which you were a part of for Bette Midler. There was nothing, because the majority of Hollywood can't stand him, but there are pockets of Hollywood and the music industry, the classless, well, I am going to say a couple, Ted Nugent's and them, because they're the bottom feeders, that ride or die with this guy, but he doesn't care about them either. He doesn't care about these people, but they roll with it. So I mean, I know I've talked to people, I have friends in the industry, and it breaks their heart that they see people, but you can't, just because the person's an artist doesn't make them a good person. Just like if you put a uniform on, like I said, if you were no good before you put the uniform on, you're going to most likely be no good when you have it on. So, I mean, it's a sad commentary. Want to give the viewers, I'll give you a social media platform. You can find her melissamanchester.com. I know you're not an X anymore. I understand why you bailed. Elon Musk. Ugh, I got to stay for the fight, but I totally understand why people left, because he's a creep. He's a racist and an anti-Semite. They also can find your YouTube channel. Just type in Melissa Manchester. It comes up. You got a lot of subscribers to a great content. Want to close with a couple thoughts and then give you back the microphone, as I always do, to close out. And I want to read this because I don't want to miss none of it. I mean this from the heart. You've cemented a legacy through your music and your being on the right side of history through your activism. They will live on way after we are both gone. I promise you, both David and Ruth Manchester, no doubt, are looking down from heaven above, deeply proud of their daughter for using her God-given talents and your humanity to make this world a better place. I say nothing I don't mean. I told you just privately about your parents. I know my father's looking down on me. I know, like I said, I can't walk in his activism shoes. I walk in his footsteps that he left behind. And that's what I'm always going to do. And you have used your God-given talent, or whatever your beliefs are, whatever your higher being is. I don't get into religion, but whatever you feel your talent comes from, you took it and you used it for the good. I appreciate that. I've been listening to you. I'm 55. I've listened to you since I was 7 years old. So we're going back. Actually, I'll be 56, so almost 49 years. Thank you. As I told you in a restaurant last month, thank you for what you do. It does make a difference, because I know people are tired and it's like we're this insanity, but people follow you. You have fans, and your voice matters. And every voice together, then collectively as one, we can make changes. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a hell of a fight ahead of us. Even if Trump doesn't win, which I'm hoping like hell he doesn't, and I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that happens. But we still got a big fight ahead of us, because the ideology is out there, whether he in there or he's not. So again, thank you very much for what you do. I love you to death. I adore you, and I respect you. And I mean all three of those things. You're a mensch. give you back the microphone, close out with anything you want.
Well, I love you. Thank you for inviting me back. I love you and Debbie. And I am so grateful for your platform, for your courage, your deep courage to articulate this moment unvarnished, and inviting us all to share in this space, because we've never been here before. We've never been here before. And I think with the rise in anti-Semitism and the rise in xenophobia and the rise in falsehoods and all that, it's very important to stay awake and keep our eyes open and use as big a light to just follow the insanity, so we can just stay on top of it and do our best to combat it, whatever that means. I think that democracy is fragile and exquisite, and it is up to every generation, as President Eisenhower and Ben Franklin said, it is up to every generation to protect it. And I'm here for the walk.
There you go. All right, darling. Again, I love you. You know where I'm at. Let's get together sooner than later. And best of you on this tour. I can't wait, like I said, to bring Debbie. We'll find someplace that's close.
Yes, of course. Yes, indeed.
All right. Enjoy your rest of your day, and God bless.
Thank you. You too.